So today I'm here to talk about phlebotomy. What is phlebotomy? Phlebotomy is the drawing of blood. When people stick that needle in your arm and pull out blood to be tested, that's a phlebotomist, and that's what phlebotomy is. So I have been doing phlebotomy for like 25 years, maybe this year. Yeah, about 25 years or 26 years. So um, I started out doing phlebotomy because phlebotomy offers you can get a phlebotomy job that has a flexible schedule. And I started in, I want to say it was like 1998. I started taking classes and I started hearing about that they had flexible jobs where you can go to locations, draw the blood, get paid for it. And some places paid you by the person, some places paid you depending on what type of uh, blood or what type of thing you were doing. This was for insurance companies that had the flexible schedule where you could go draw someone's blood, take their vitals. So you had to take their blood pressure and you might have to take a temperature or something like that. And so I've tried to go that route. That's the route I wanted to go. So they have a bunch of phlebotomy courses that they offer. Some phlebotomy courses are maybe 3 to 6 months. Some are longer. At the time, they had this course that was probably about a year because they want you to take some classes, like say medical terminology, phlebotomy 101, some other little classes. They wanted you to take what was it? Uh, Anatomy and physiology, things like that. So those different little classes they want you to take so you can kind of have a gist and knowledge of the human body and how the blood system works and your system period. So I ended up taking that plus the phlebotomy that comes along with it. Oh, and also some offer EKG also with it because I think I had phlebotomy and EKG. But I never used the EKG because where I went to, they didn't perform EKGs. And then also the insurance company that I started with, they didn't do EKGs. So, but the thing was, at least you were trained in it and had a certificate in it. And they offer you a certificate. And then you also have to be accredited with some type of accreditation like the ASAP. Um, and there's a lot of other groups. I might have said that wrong, but there's different medical associations that they want you to have a certificate with and want you to be accredited with them. And that way it's proof that you've taken your phlebotomy courses. Okay? So, also you have to pay like union dues or dues every year for those particular accreditations and stuff. So be prepared for that. This is just proof that you took a course and you are legitimate, that you just didn't learn on the streets or in somebody's lab or what have you. You did go to school for this particular field. Now, I tried to do the insurance thing, but it didn't work out for me because they send you to different locations. And during that time, they was, to me, in my opinion, and it was a fact, they were sending me to a lot of really crazy locations that were in the hood and in dangerous areas. And sometimes people wouldn't even answer the door. I mean, I would like look up at that, like they would be in an apartment and people would be in the apartment, but they would never answer the door or their phones. And back then we didn't have the cell phone technology that we have now. It was like still they didn't answer their phones. So it was a thing. And so people weren't, and they expected me. They knew I was coming, but I guess during the time that I came, it just wasn't a good time for them. So instead of canceling, they just didn't answer their door. And then again, who knows? Maybe they didn't want to black guy. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what people are thinking, or maybe they didn't want a guy. I'm not just saying, I'm not saying it's a prejudice thing, but I don't know what's going through their minds, and they never explained what was going on. So anyway, I kept it moving. But the thing is, you don't get paid, because if you don't collect the sample or do any of the vitals or do anything you need to do, you don't get paid for it. So it was frustrating because this was like during the winter time, and it was cold, and sometimes it's raining. Like I said, they send you to these crazy places. One time I went into a house, and this is what stopped me from doing it, period. One time I went into a house, and I was the house was completely pitch black. This guy, he came to answer the door, and I was supposed to do an older lady for insurance. So I'm assuming this was like his mother or grandmother or something. I'm not sure. So he opened the door, and when I came in the house, it's completely pitch black. But when you come slightly from the front door, you can see straight into the kitchen. So I can see the kitchen, and it's at the other end of the back end of the house. So I can't see to the right of me, which is a room, like the living room and dining room. So I can't see, it's pitch black there. And then evidently they even had the windows covered with something that just made it completely black. But then on my left was just a wall, and maybe a door and another door, but a wall. Then so as I'm walking straight through, I'm in the living room, and then I get to the dining room. When I'm in the dining room, I feel a presence to my right, and I feel someone moving. And it's like they're starting out one part of the dining room, and then they're kind of moving. As I'm moving close to the kitchen, they're like coming almost behind me, not directly behind me, but just moving in that direction. The guy is still walking behind me. I am totally freaked out right now because I'm like, oh Lord, this is it. Because somebody else is in this room, and they can do anything they want to me. So as I'm going into the kitchen, I can see the lady. She's sitting there at the table, and then I kind of looking behind me, and I'm kind of like, going in, and I'm like praying that this is not a setup. And so it was legit. So I ended up doing the blood test. I ended up taking her blood pressure and her vitals and stuff. So that went very well. And then it was time to go. And again, as I was leaving, someone was still in that room. But I ended up getting out the house. And it was in a bad neighborhood in a suburb of Chicago. I'm in Chicago, by the way. So it was in a suburb, and it was a bad area. And I just said, you know what? This is it. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore, because they're sending me to the worst areas. And then I go into a pitch black house, a dark house. I wasn't expecting that. So I said, no, this is too dangerous. It's too much. So I ended up working in a hospital, which I think is a better setting. It's concrete. You get benefits. The flexibility, not so much. So I ended up going to a hospital to work in the hospital. It was more stable, and I needed stability, or I needed at least a stable pay, not no up and down or maybe and maybe not. Anyway, so you take your phlebotomy courses, and you pick your program, how long you want to do it, and you do clinicals for the last part of the program. And in the clinicals, it involves what we call getting your sticks. So you have to get like 100 sticks or 200 sticks, depending on the program. Who knows? 500 sticks. And what happens is you end up doing this clinical in a hospital, or at least a clinical setting, to where you're drawing blood all day. And so you get your sticks, which is your practice, in at that facility or that place or wherever. So you end up going there, and you end up getting that. And then so that's what I did. So a lot of times too, if you do a program, make sure it's attached to a hospital, or at least, a hospital, preferably, because that way you can always go in and get those sticks, and they'll set you up. You'll go with another phlebotomist who works there, and you'll go around with them, and they're supposed to let you get those sticks. But then that can become a problem, because you can get in there with a phlebotomist who is just trying to finish their work. So yeah, you can get in there with a phlebotomist who's just trying to finish their work. And if you do that, then you may say you may be going for 20 patients and you may not, be able to stick but 2 or 3 because this person you're with is speeding through and trying to get their work done, but at the same time they're trying to get you to do something, but at the same time keep up with their work because they have a certain time they have to get this blood and they have to keep going, and then they might take a break or something. So remember, when you're like going to these hospitals doing your clinicals, you are working with a person that works there, but at the same time, you're sort of slowing down their day because you have to be very quick when you do this. But when you're starting out, you may not be that fast. You don't know the ins and outs. You have to have your equipment set up. You have to have your stuff set up so that you can just go in and out. You don't know this when you first get in there. You're bumbling around, and you create, you're kind of creating your environment and learning how to move about in that type of environment. So this is what's going on when you first start. So once you start doing the clinicals, once you finish your clinicals and get all your sticks, that was your experience. So try to get as much out of that experience as you can, because that way when you go into a real setting, you'll be a little bit more comfortable and you'll kind of know a little bit more. So that'll make you comfortable too, to make you kind of, run a lot smoother wherever you end up going. So some people, sometimes they want to work in a clinic. Sometimes they want to work in a hospital. Some people may do insurances. I do know some people, also in the clinic setting, or if you work for a lab. So they go to different facilities, like say an elderly, old folks home, and they will go in there and draw blood, and they have to get so much of the blood, take it back to the lab. And then the lab may end up either analyzing the blood there, or they may send it to a bigger facility, a bigger hospital, to finish it up. So some people do enjoy the flexibility of coming from a lab, going to maybe say a nursing home or going to someone's home. They do have flexible schedules and jobs like that. But for me, it just wasn't for me. And now it may work for you because, they may not send you in the worst areas because there are better areas to go to. I did also even go to certain people's to their jobs. It depends on what's also comfortable for the patient or for the client, because the client may prefer you to come to their job to draw the blood. They may want you to come to their home to draw the blood. They may have a lab set up, at your place, at your lab or clinic, and maybe a place they're set up for them to come to and draw. So it depends on what's comfortable for the client and, where you two can meet up. Because some people do have to go to work. Some people do have daily things to do. So if you're doing it for insurance purposes, then you have to make an appointment with the client. And that's what they prefer, so you can meet up. When it comes to the nursing homes and things like that, those are kind of more scheduled appointments or scheduled drawings that may happen every week or may happen every day or may happen twice a week. It depends on the patient or the setup. In a hospital, blood tests are scheduled throughout the day. So if you work in the mornings, you would do a morning draw, kind of a mid-morning draw, and then an afternoon draw. So, they have it timed periodically every 4 to 6 to 8 hours or certain times of the day. So everywhere is different. And you just have to learn how to move with those differences. So phlebotomy is a pretty good job to start. Now, a lot of them for pay, a lot of them these days, I believe, start about, the lowest I've heard, about $18 at the lowest. You may have some lower than that, but I know the cost of living, since the minimum wage is now $15 in most places, that they may start you out around 18. Before it used to be 15, but I believe it's like 18. And I've heard as high as them paying 26 and that's due to experience, and the bigger institutions pay that. So if you get in phlebotomy, I suggest that you apply for a hospital, or you know what I'm saying, a big hospital of some kind, because they pay the better pay, and they're more stable and consistent. And I would suggest if you can do that. If you cannot get in by filling out an application, I would suggest try to go through a temp agency and do the temping thing and try to work that, do that. And then, sometimes if you temp at a hospital, they may like your work and like you as a worker. And if there's an opening later on down the line, they may tend to hire you because they know you now and they know how you work, they know you, and you're a good fit. A lot of times, if you're with temp agencies, check with the agencies. They have contracts. They don't allow you to apply for a job when you're temping or while you were temping. And then I think there's a stipulation that you have to wait so long after the temp agency to be able to apply at a place that you did the temping at before. Sometimes the place will buy you out your contract right then and there if they really want you. They'll pay the money for the contract you're in to pull you in because they really want you. I've seen it happen. So that happens. Another thing you can do is, if you can't get that phlebotomy job coming out of phlebotomy school, which I did because I didn't even get a job until 8 months later in phlebotomy. So I had to go work for Walgreens. If you know what Walgreens is, a department, a little store, the store Walgreens. And I worked for them, and I did that for like 8 months. And then that way, finally, when I got called into a hospital, I was able to quit that job and go to that one. A lot of times you need a job right away. Now, had I known, I didn't know this, but a good thing to do is you can apply for other jobs at the hospital that don't require certificates or diploma or any of those things, that pay about the same or a little bit lower, like the environmental services, which is like the janitorial portion of the department. Also, you can do transportation or work in the kitchen. And that way you can do that. And then after 6 months at most places, you can move around to another department, but you have to stay in that department for 6 months. So you can do that for 6 months, and then you can wait it out after that time, and apply for what you really want to go for. Because a lot of times too, but you have to go and talk to the manager and the supervisors and let them know you exist there and that you would like to one day apply there. You have your certificate and you would like to, try to work there. And then that way they'll keep in touch with you. So when something comes up, they'll call you. And they rather hire someone within than someone on the outside. Because that way, if you're already in the hospital, in the institution, whatever it is, they like to hire you, first. You'll have, and a lot of times they'll give you first dibs to do it. Because a lot of times they, like I said, they prefer people already there. So do that. I didn't know about that. This is something no one told me. Well, I'm telling you. I've told you too in another previous video too. I'm telling you again, this is a good way to get in. Work for another department. You got to think outside of the box. All the time, you can't fill out an application and get the job. It doesn't work that way. Now, if you know somebody, that's a good way to get in. If you know somebody. But other than that, you have to do your own way. So, by that being said, that's the way that you try to apply for those jobs. Like I said, once you get out of school, it's not all that easy. A lot of times places, they do require you to have a year or two experience. But nowadays, a lot of places will hire you and you can really acquire that experience as you're working because they're going to train you. They're going to train. And what I mean by that is they feel you can draw blood, but they want to train you to how that facility operates because every facility is different. They have slight different equipment. They have different ways of doing things, but all of it is on the same guideline, but just So, like I was saying, this place over here might do certain things at a different way, different pace, use different, say, carts, different things to carry your equipment. Where this place, the same thing, or maybe they have it set up to where people come to you depending on how they want you to work and where they want you to work. So every place is different. So that's why when you go into this field, you have to be trained to the way that particular place operates. And so during that training, you will also be training to draw the blood. You'll get used to that because, see, a lot of times you might, during your clinicals, might have been, training in an outpatient setting, and you might have perfect veins and good veins, but now you're going to go into a setting where people's veins are hard to find. So you'll get that practice in where they're hard to do people. And it's important that they do train you. They have to. Every place, no matter where you work, they have to train you to how they work. They don't care if you've been doing it for 40 years. They still have to train you how that place operates. And so that's where you get your training from, and that's how you know, now it's not as hard as it used to be. Like before, they want you with that experience. That was such a big deal. No, not these days. I've seen it a million times. I see it all the time. So don't let that deter you. Fill that application out anyway. Use that time that you did get your experience on your clinicals. Put that on there. Put it on there. Yes, put it on there. Also, once you get your training, then like I said, the set pay is usually $18 to $26, depending on your experience and depending on the institution. Also, they have great benefits. I opt for the one like where the institution will pay everything in full if you utilize their place. A lot of people don't like using that because of they're afraid that other coworkers may get into their business, knowing their business. Me, there's HIPAA and there's all these rules in place that if someone invades your privacy when they don't need to or have to, they can lose their job. And it's possible they can be prosecuted. Depends on the severity of the whole thing. But I think just them invading it, they'll definitely lose their job. And then don't let them have a certificate or a license. That's a strike against their certificate or their license. I'm not sure with nursing, but those other places, they may lose their license. I don't know. But I definitely know you'll lose your job that way. So they don't even want you going in your own stuff on the computer. And your family, like if you have a loved one, I can't even go on my daughter's or my wife's information because it's privacy. It's private, and they don't want anyone doing that. So those are things. Also, depending on, make sure that wherever you work is a good fit for you. The closer, the better to your house. I'm not saying smaller hospitals are not a good place to work, but in my experience, you got to be careful with some of them because some of them can go under. Other than that, and then two, they may not have a good practice at that hospital of anything because of whoever's running it. So just make sure you check out reviews, talk to people, make sure the benefits are benefiting. So a lot of times you'll go through HR, the Human Resource Department, to do that. Also, when you fill out applications at the Human Resource Department, like I said, ask all the questions. Ask about the benefits. Ask about the rules and regulations. Make sure you know your rules and regulations. That will do a person in all the time. If you, say, have some type of ailment or handicap, they do tend to still hire you. But if it's something that's hindering you from walking or carrying so many pounds, then it's not a good job for you to enter. I've seen people come to the job and they have leg problems and they want the place to facilitate that. And that's not a good idea because they frown pretty much upon that. But the thing is, they don't discriminate. But if it becomes, I've seen it happen, if it becomes like a problem, you're doing yourself a disservice, because now somehow you're going to do something to have yourself let go. Because I've seen people take tons and tons of time off, and a lot of times they don't even have the time, and they end up losing their job because of it, because of they weren't authorized. And you can only go so far with those things. They're not. It's not like an endless amount of time that you can use to say, "Oh, I'm sick," or "I can't walk this day," or "I can't do that." Um, it's just not a good thing to enter into that field if you have something that will prohibit you from walking or carrying or standing. You know what I mean? You don't, I wouldn't get in a job like that. You need a desk job, a flexible desk job at home, on the phone, or at a computer or something. You know what I mean? So don't do yourself a disservice and get in a job like that, and you start having leg problems, or you already know you got them, but then now you're telling the job, because you didn't probably disclose that earlier, that you have those problems. They're not going to facilitate that for a long time, for a certain amount of time in the when the guidelines and the rules and regulations, but that stuff runs out after a certain time. So please be careful of that. Just make sure that you come to work, stay off your phones, because nowadays people have a problem being on the phones. And if you're a good worker, people will tend to constantly want to work with you and hire you. Always remember, this is a small world, and the phlebotomy world is a small world. Don't think you can hop from job to job and no one's going to know what you did at your last job. A lot of people know other people at other jobs all over. You'll be surprised and shocked. Just because they're different nationalities doesn't mean anything. People are related to people. And believe me, you will not be able to get a job because someone at another place may be like, they may know somewhere that someone at the place you came from, and they call over there and say, "Hey, we got this person applying over here. Do they work for you? Or they used to? Yeah, I see that. How were they?" And they'll tell it. And if you weren't a good worker, you cannot get hired based on that. And that's possible. That there's an old job I worked where I seen it happen. And now that hospital is no longer existing, because that's the practices that they did, and they will not hire you based on someone's word. So remember, your reputation can precede you, and you not even know it. Yeah, a lot of people, and don't think too, you worked in a hospital, now you're going into the business world. It's the same thing. Someone else from a hospital could have went to the business world, and someone at that hospital could know that person in that business world that wants to hire you, and then they call that hospital you came from, and guess what? So it's the same thing. So always remember that. Even if you think you're going to become a doctor. Now, if you're not, and it's just, you don't want that following you. It can. Don't think it can't. It happens all the time. All right? So I hope this was good information for you all. Phlebotomy is a good job to start in. It pays enough to get, to make a living. Start with the bigger institutions. I hope this was all helpful for you all. If it was, please comment. Let me know. Let me know what's going on, how it went, if you need some advice about something. Also, I want you to subscribe and like, because I have a lot of other tons of stuff to talk about. All right? All right. Peace out.